the line. You want a war? You're gonna get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Well, it looks like the weather may be rearing its ugly head already. I had trouble getting the show started tonight. So, man, when that 8 o'clock hits and you hit go, man, and it don't go, it's like panic attack.
Yeah.
So
Well, welcome,
we are
everybody.
back after a long, wild weekend in St. Louis. I had the luxury of already being in St. Louis, so I didn't have to make the trip. So I thought we'd start off as I think it's both your guys' KJ and Michael. I think it's both your first trip to St. Louis, isn't it?
It was.
First, definitely as a sports fan, I'll say that, or for a UFL sports fan. I've been once before for an Astros-Cardinals game, but definitely got to see more of the city the second time around for sure. So,
My first Super Bowl, you would say.
right,
It would be
first spring bowl, first
spring bowl. Great time though. Great game. You know, a lot of scoring. So if you like offense, you certainly got your money's worth. Both sides, you know. And I asked Coach Shannon, after the game, you know, like no lead is safe, you know, in this league. So I made a lot of fun. Where I went up to Ed where he was sitting, and I'm like, well, and this looks interesting now.
Sounds like Patrick 830 miles that he drove was worth it.
Yeah, we drove. What did we drive? 570.
Yeah, Mike was a self-proclaimed not a tailgater, and he made the walk over to our tailgate, and KJ and Michael missed each other by a matter of minutes. But
Wow.
So Mike got his chance to tailgate a little bit with us. So why don't you tell us, Mike, a little bit about your experience coming to St. Louis?
Yeah, so the first thing that you look for, where's the St. Louis Arch, right? So you saw the St. Louis Arch, so check that box there. But parking was, I tried to use my press pass, but I just whatever lot that looked convenient to the stadium, all right, that's fine. We'll pay this toll here, and then try to find you guys. Then I saw some folks, and it was kind of like, it was fun seeing the fan fest getting set up. So you get a little thing going on, and then you see other fans, and I know some other people, and then a lot of the Facebook and the UFL community traveled to come watch this thing. So that was really cool to see. And then I was like, where's the summer stock tailgate? And, oh yeah, it's right over on the corner over here where you have the Ed and everybody. So I go over there and oh, you just missed the Michigan Panther big group photo. Now I missed that by just a matter of minutes. I missed KJ just by a matter of minutes. It was just we're all in one place, and then just so many moving pieces, and we just miss each other by that much. So, but at any rate, it was just I wasn't the humidity didn't get. I didn't like how hot it was outdoors, and then even indoor in the stadium, it was pretty warm too. But overall, I mean, it was a great experience, and I hope to see more and more fans that either travel to support their team or fans, KJ, where your team's not in it, but you still go to support the league and then watch a good football game too. And then you can't beat the price with that too. So to get and watch a championship game, pro level football game to attend, you can't beat that.
So it's kind of funny, KJ, that Mike was talking about how he doesn't like the heat and humidity of St. Louis. He hasn't been down south yet, has he?
I was going to say, welcome to the South, brother. But then another thing,
you don't have the humidity down there, though.
I thought, I thought cats were native to warmer climates, so I'm a little confused how you can be a Panthers fan and not endure the humidity.
you gotta find those cats, those like Arctic kind of cats.
Yeah.
We
gotta change y'all's name to the Michigan Snow Panthers or something, Snow Leopards or something, make it more applicable.
We'll have to ask Brett if he agrees with Mike that they don't have the humidity down south.
Now Southwest, that's different than Brett's been down there. If he's closer, he's got some water not too far from him. But when you get out into the Arizonas and all that, that's when you get the dry heat.
You know what, though? I know they talk about dry heat, but if it's 105 degrees outside, it's 105 degrees outside. I don't care what.
Yeah, I don't like the water being in the air.
Mike doesn't want to take a second shower, is what he's trying to say.
Or a third.
So anyway, we had the big tailgate, and I know I got to give a big shout out to KJ because he saved me at the end of the tailgate. I think he's probably not glad that he wore like 3 or 4 layers of clothes when he was loading my truck up with all the coolers and stuff. But no, we had a real good turnout, especially from the Michigan fans. I know that the DC fans, they're not used to tailgating the way it is out in DC, so they had already lined up the over-under bar, which was literally across the street from my old office, so I knew exactly where they were at. But it looked like they had a pretty good crowd themselves. So, I had to send kudos out to the league because I thought between Michigan and DC, they was well represented.
Yeah, I saw. You got to hear the reactions definitely when the big plays are made, both DC and Michigan. That was, and I think a lot of the Panther fans were sitting together from what on towards like where they by the 20 or somewhere. I would look over. I like to sit by the 50 whenever I can. Just same with you, Ed. Just I'm a 50-yard kind of guy. Kind of sit up, kind of high, so you can kind of see the game and see the plays develop. So, but I try to make a little bit of noise too to help the defense or whatever the case. But still a good game between both. Yeah, Brian got to meet Brian down there too. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming to the tailgate, Brian. It was nice to meet you for sure. I had just watched him on My Panther Pride, their episode really leading up to the championship game. So,
and what a game too! Like this.
Yeah, I recognized him right away when he come walking up. So.
Yeah, and then getting to the game too, and I think a lot of the Panther fans, and what a season for both teams, and congratulations to the DC Defenders for winning this championship. And I think when I had some, just brainstorming what I want to talk about tonight. I just think this game between both teams, I think we're 2 locker rooms. I think we're 2 of the closest in the league, and getting to this game and how, what a with DC, they had to overcome adversity from the jump. And and they say about a team that overcomes adversity is a dangerous team. And Michigan, it's a lot of veterans, a lot of guys returning, to go and win this thing. And they made it this far, and DC had the answer. They found what I believe, was the weak, I want to say a weak part, but just a vulnerable spot for Michigan, which was their secondary. And, Fred Kais and the offensive staff there dialed up some big plays, and big plays are what Michigan was vulnerable at stopping. Birmingham kind of showed a little bit in that championship game that if they launch the ball down the field, and DC's got good receivers too. Chris Rowland, former Philadelphia Star, when I was there as a video operations assistant. Very happy for him to get a championship as well. So all the Philadelphia Stars, hopefully they feel a little close to that championship with one of our guys winning it. So great game. Michigan, the comeback made it a lot of fun, and hope to see more good football for years to come.
What about you, KJ?
And I think for me, the overall experience was a blast. I definitely enjoyed getting to meet so many DC and Michigan fans. I personally wasn't able to make our home game or the road game that Houston played during the regular season against Michigan. So it was cool to have those two respective teams in the championship game. I don't know how many DC fans came down to Houston when we played them at the end of the regular season. I was there for that one. But regardless, I think it was just cool to be able to meet so many different folks, both beyond those teams. Getting to meet Excalibur face to face was awesome. And I don't know, the overall experience was a blast. Wasn't able to go last season to the championship game when they had it. So this was kind of a multiple box checker for me from a sports fan standpoint. Y'all did a great job, obviously, with the tailgate, Ed. And I was admittedly fashionably late, I believe, to the actual festivities. And Kevin, I guess Ed's right-hand man, was kind enough to still cook me up a smash burger after the fact. So I could sincerely appreciate that and be able to get a little grub before heading into the dome, basically. But yeah, it was a blast. I love the fact it's ironic, but then I guess I'm not a St. Louis native, so I don't know the lay of the land very well. But it seems like there's a good amount of what you would call, I guess, unincorporated or undeveloped land around at least that north side of the dome. So I really have like a lot of ample area for tailgating, even being in kind of the quote unquote landlocked downtown area, which I think is pretty cool. Not many big cities can say that, depending upon, where you sit. I don't know how Michigan looks around Ford Field per se. I'm sure they got a significant amount of parking for, Lions games and such too. But I mean, even with that being said, not every major city has the best established or existing infrastructure for your pregame festivities. And I think that's kind of cool that the Dome's got the space and the locations they do to help facilitate that. So,
well, it's too bad that, they do have that space, but for some reason this year, that space was a problem in the city.
Oh, really?
The city was really trying to make a lot of money off those spots. And so it went from being a full lot. I mean, I'm talking full lot, all of it being full, to hardly anybody at all this year. The city, I know earlier in the year they had some trouble with some concerts and stuff that they had where they had a lot of break-ins in that parking lot. So they decided it wasn't worth it from a liability standpoint. So until they put temporary lighting up. But then once they put the temporary lighting up in those two big lots that you're referring to, they raised the price of what they charge for people to park there, and it just become it was ridiculous actually. So there was a couple things about the game, just to start getting into the game a little bit.
Yep, let's dive in.
There was one thing that I wonder, and you guys can tell me whether I'm thinking right or thinking wrong. And again, hi, Brian, Amanda, Patrick, all you guys, thanks for joining. Big Mike. Referring, just to make a reference, last year when the Minnesota Vikings had their great season and Sam Darnold was having his lights out year, and it got to be towards the end of the season, and the Vikings qualified for the playoffs. In that last game of the regular season, Sam Darnold come running into the locker room, and they threw him up on their shoulders, and they were throwing water all over the place and acting like they had just won the Super Bowl. I sometimes wonder if that reference doesn't correlate to a little bit about Michigan, in the fact that Michigan had tried 7 times to get over the hump against Birmingham.
Right.
And they finally got over the hump in the playoff game. And I sometimes wonder if that celebration or that satisfaction of beating Birmingham kind of took a little bit of energy away from the team, or direction or focus or whatever you want to say for this game, because it just didn't seem like Michigan was that ready to play compared to DC. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, well, what a win that was. So me, who's followed the UFL or USFL, Michigan Panthers, however you want to call it, since the revival in 2022, and then once we start getting to like the playoff mode sort of things, and we knew Birmingham was winning the USFL in 22, 23, and then 24, and then just when the merger, and then how close and heartbreaking these losses were recently for Michigan, and then when they finally beat them, like that's a win. I think that'll be remembered for quite some time. And then shout out to Brett. Hello, Brett. We hopefully you enjoyed a wonderful season as well. And then with this win, I mean, I compared it to I think when the Colts beat the Patriots for the first time under like in the championship game in the 2006, 2007 game. That's what I would compare it to if I looked at it through that lens, being in the Panthers, Michigan market, rallying all the fans of this thing. And what a great win that was. And then with watching them against DC, and now DC, they played like, I think there was a little bit, I think they all would play for their quarterback. I think a lot of the guys would line up and say like, yeah, we played, went the extra mile for JT or Jordan Ta'amu to get this win. Now, he had a lot of things going on. Bryce Perkins MVP. Now, the argument is, he missed 3 games, the 3.5 games,
Right.
stepping out on that quarter. So, but he's a playmaker. He's put a lot of highlights up there. The league, I don't know how they voted and things like that, but at the end of the day, I think DC took that personally, and they said, "Hey, our quarterback's been up there the whole year, passing yards, touchdown passes, making big plays, running for touchdowns." And where was the recognition didn't seem to be leveraged their way. It was more towards Bryce. But both are, if they were to give a co-MVP, kind of like what Steve McNair and Peyton Manning, I think this would be warranted for both of these quarterbacks as well, because what a terrific season. It's, obviously that, or unfortunate that there's one that has to receive the award, but I think if there is a time and place where you could do multiple MVPs for a season, I think this one would be, this would qualify for that. So good year overall by both guys. I think they should get opportunities at the NFL level, but if they are able to come back and help this league grow and then have returning players to this league, I think that'd be huge. And this could be a game where circle it if Bryce and JT come back for both teams. Circle that on your calendar. That'd be a must-watch game.
So what do you think of that, KJ, his comment about the MVP and the fact that it didn't go to Jordan Ta'amu? Do you think that had any bearing as far as DC coming out of the chute the way they did?
I mean, I think Jordan's even highlighted that on both the A-Team show earlier this evening, as well as even when Arlington we had an opportunity to happen to meet him in the Horseshoe Casino after the game that Saturday evening after the championship game, and he was very transparent to share that he definitely, to some degree, took it personally when they kind of, didn't vote in his favor, I guess, during the regular season. I would say, I mean, I don't know how much quantitatively we can equate it to that, though I do think obviously when you go into the game with a certain mental state, it helps you just be that much more aggressive and intentional and, leaving everything out on the field. I don't even know, I could give some credit to the component of Michigan being able to kind of quote unquote make history by beating Birmingham when they did in the semifinals in the matchup for the conference title. But the biggest thing I would say, if you want to get more into like the granular components that I think made the difference in the game, is one, we could say that Bryce, to your point, Mike, wasn't still healthy to 100%. I noticed that even when I watched the Birmingham game, there were times when he was getting pressured in the pocket, and you could tell he was still favoring the one, I guess, stronger ankle that he had or whatever. And so I'm sure that may have played a factor to some degree in the game, especially after you get hit a couple times, I forget the guy's name, but the one defensive end that y'all didn't have that was literally listed as inactive at the start of the game, that I know a couple people from PFN had mentioned that they thought that may have played a factor in Michigan's ability to provide more defensive pressure against Jordan, obviously, when the DC offense was on the field. And then I noted personally from my seat vantage point during the game, they had one or two players go down during the course of the game. I think one of them, number 10, I don't know who that is, ended up coming back. But they had one guy that literally left the field, I think, and never came back out to my knowledge. So, I mean, injuries are going to hurt any squad. And, I mean, from the onset, they definitely dominated. I think a lot of people, maybe some casual fans were complaining that it was over after halftime. I would disagree. Honestly, there was a point in the fourth quarter, and Mike, I think, can even attest to this, especially both of us all of us here really being spring football vets. We know the component and the uniqueness that the UFL provides, kind of even existing pre-XFL, with the kind of 9-point opportunity for every series that you use an offense. And all the way up until I want to say around the 5-minute mark or so in the fourth quarter, Michigan was literally within a 2-score range. So, I mean, you can do that in a matter of less than 4 minutes, honestly, when you do the 4-15 conversion. They had done, 3 in a row, I think, to get back to the score they were at, Mike, prior to DC scoring their final touchdown. So, for me, honestly, at the 5-minute mark, I was like, oh, man, defenders, please don't pull a Houston, because you're looking like you might at one point in the game there towards the end. But they finally made that final score, and with a little bit of time left, I was like, that's the final nail in the coffin. But prior to that, it was still a ball game despite the margin that existed between the two teams. So.
Yeah, and we'd like to welcome more folks to the show. We see Coach Guys is tuning in too.
He actually responded to my question about whether I thought it had any bearing the MVP talk, but I want to congratulate him on his award. That was great to see, and Coach guys, I'd really love to have you on the show sometime and then pick your brain on this game, because one thing I was impressed with when the game started was, okay, Michigan starts fast, right? And they scored 2 touchdowns on their first 2 possessions. Now, DC was able to answer their first touchdown, but on the second touchdown, they had a 4th down. And rather than chase the touchdowns and maybe go for it on 4th down and come away empty-handed, they were patient and they took the field goal as it presented itself early and just kept going. I mean, their offense was unbelievable. And, and I know of a team, and I'll just go ahead and say it, the Battlehawks, if they would have had an opening half like DC had, they would have went into full conservative mode that second half and played not to lose. Whereas it was awesome when they interviewed Coach Fred. Guys, he come right out and he says, I'm not taking the foot off the pedal. We're still full steam ahead, man. It's go time. And you could tell just by watching his demeanor, he was ready to go. And he wanted to keep piling it on. And at the end of the day, it's a good thing they had that mentality, because they were able to keep putting points on the board that made that late run by Michigan just way too little too late. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Whereas had they went into conservative mode, who knows what might have happened.
Yeah, and shoot, like just and everybody on these teams. So what I can't be happier for both teams, even just getting there too. And then for DC, their fans that were there, they had a nice section over in the end zone too, celebrating. So good turnout for everybody.
So before, Lauren brought up a good point.
Do we have the highlights for the game?
Yeah, we do. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about the tailgate, because I was going to leave that till the end of the show. But now that I think about it, you've got DC fans and Michigan fans that are both on Eastern time zone.
Yep.
That if they don't wait till the end of the show, they're going to miss out. But talk a little bit about the tailgate. PFN Newsroom teamed up with My Panther Pride, and they got a hold of me, and my guys here at the Bottom Line, to put on a tailgate for the Michigan and DC fans, and just to put up a few pictures of the tailgate. It did not disappoint. Here was this was the Avenue of Flags. No, this was before the tents and all that stuff was put up. But as you can see, we represent all the teams. But there's Lauren and Jesse from My Panther Pride. You would not believe, it's kind of funny now that we talk about this. You would not believe how many references Jesse took to saying he looks exactly like AJ McCarron. He definitely does. When the minute they mentioned that, I was like, yeah, he does. But I'll bet you one time we had probably, I don't know, Lauren can attest to it, but I have to say we probably had at least 30 or so Michigan fans at our tailgate at the height of it. And it was even nice to see some DC fans there. I know Chris, that's been following our show all year, he was there, so I got a chance to talk to him. Then, out of the blue, who shows up at our tailgate?
That was the highlight for me.
None other than the Defensive Player of the Year for the St. Louis Battlehawks, Peta. Awesome. He showed up. So, of course, I had to get the B-Hawk Live can out from last year at our tailgate and at least have him pose with the picture. He's not a drinker, so he didn't indulge, but he still thought the can was pretty cool. And it was he was supposed to be over at the Experience with Travis Feeney signing autographs, but he was a little late because he was having some fun over at our tailgate, and I know he played some catch with the little dude Evan that has become a pretty popular guy with the St. Louis Battlehawk fan base. And then Michigan went into Lauren and Jesse had to get into recruitment mode, and I think they even had Peta sign a Michigan jersey, and I had to keep reminding him that he was a St. Louis Battlehawk, so don't be trying to put any of those ideas in his head. But he come right out and said that that was his first tailgate as a Battlehawk, and I just wish that the league would realize just how important these players are to the fan bases that they represent, and that if at all possible, if the league could make these players available to the team or to the fan base, to the tailgates, it'd go a long way, I think, with putting butts in the seats, because it was priceless. It was priceless having him there, that's for sure.
Yeah, super humble dude, very down to earth. He even helped, I think, Lauren and them they did 2 different drawings, right, Ed? One for, I forget what is, and then they did the last Jake Bates bobblehead I guess they gave away.
Yeah, I ended up winning one of the bobbleheads, but they did a raffle. And, of course, when Peter showed up at the tailgate, I just happened to have a couple Battlehawk mini helmets in my truck that I had to get out real quick, and he put his autograph on the wings on both. So that was definitely the highlight of the tailgate for me. That's for sure.
He did a little bit of everything. I don't know for the others who didn't notice it. I don't know if I snapped a picture of it in the course of action, but actually during the championship game, he was walking around the outfield, the outer perimeter of the field with the presser, basically taking photos, and they were getting video snapshots of him doing like photography basically for the game. I was able to catch that one picture I snapped with him that's on my page, but it was cool to see him kind of engaging with the secondary press for the actual game itself too. I thought that was pretty funny.
Hey Chris, good to see you joining the show, and it was awesome to see you at the tailgate as well. Tell you what, it's just priceless to be able to put faces with names, people that you talked to the whole season on your show, and then to finally get to meet them in person is just awesome. So again, I want to thank everybody, and Lauren and Jesse, they sure brought out the Michigan faithful. So it just gives you a good idea of how impactful their show's been with the Michigan fan base, that many of those showed up at our tailgate as they did. Just let you to know what Lauren and Jesse are doing in the Michigan with the Michigan Panther fan base, and it's awesome to see. Zach and Ref, they're always fun to talk to. You see, Ducky was there too. I mean, they had and James Larson was there. I mean, it was a quite a group. Everybody showed up. So everybody, if anybody went away hungry, it was their own fault. That's all I got to say about that, because we definitely had the food out. But let's start getting into the game a little bit, and let's go ahead first and show the highlights of the game, and we'll talk about it when we come back, courtesy of the UFL.
So credited Reggie Barlow with the foundation that he laid that his team has taken. Bryce Perkins comes up big to Turner. Malik Turner is going inside the 20, cuts back, and he's diving for the end zone and gets it. Just when they need ready to go. The first one is going to take a shot. Right into the hands of Ty Scott. Can you believe this UFL championship game? Knockout punch after knockout punch. For Tom, ready the best passing game anybody's ever had in the UFL. And he's adding to it to Briley Moore. To go. Fourth down, Rowland turns upfield. Rowland's got more than just an inch. Another touchdown for DC. This is...
I tell you what, you could have had highlights for 5 minutes of that game rather than a minute or whatever. So that all got tucked in to a cool minute and 37 seconds. But there's sure a lot more highlights in that game. I'm just so impressed with DC's offensive game plan. And Ta'amu was just on fire. I mean, he could do no wrong. And they struck while the iron was hot. and they just kept throwing the long ball until they could get stopped, and it just didn't happen. They kind of the Michigan defense. Their weakness was kind of the weakness that the Battlehawks had all season as well, and that the cornerbacks and the safeties just gave up way too many big plays, and boy, did DC exploit it.
But what a game, too, just overall. I mean, you look at the stats here, like Jordan Teamu, 390 yards. Bryce Perkins, 338 total yards. That's just what a game. I think it's gonna be. I mean, let's hope the next year can beat this one. It's gonna be tough to beat with the offense, but I think we're seeing now when we talked about how the league is getting more improved with the player quality and just the overall. Just as you get more years under the belt, you're gonna start seeing the games becoming more. They're gonna be bigger every year. Every game matters. And then. What Lauren just said too, there was a turnover. There was that one was a real dagger too. That touchdown pass before the halftime. It's like, oh my goodness, what a clinic, that DC's putting on. And then but I was like, well, it could be it's a tale of two halves, but more so that came in the fourth quarter. But what a rally by Michigan to keep you on the edge of your seat to see, well, if DC doesn't get the ball back, what could happen here. I did with the overall, the presentation was good. I got to pregame. I got to talk to Daryl Johnston just about, gave my 2 cents of what could happen with the Super Bowl, the game day presentation. So, I know there's some inflatable helmets in storage. So maybe if each team got an inflatable helmet, put those on the field, because I think there's some things that the NFL used to do that I think has been lost as far as the presentation of their big game. Maybe the UFL could do something like that. If you will go back and watch the 2003 Super Bowl between the Raiders and Buccaneers, you'd see how they had their big inflatables on the field for pregame. So I think that would be that'd be real. I think that'd be cool to see a little bit of that. I'm a big fan of the retro stuff, or anything that kind of gets you a little bit into how things were in the I guess mid 2000s sort of deal. Late 90s, mid 2000s. I'm a sucker for that. So if there's anything that can come back to be utilized, for the championship game, I'd be thrilled.
Well, as I was talking about a little bit ago about the secondary for Michigan at the postgame presser, Coach Nolan was asked about the Michigan secondary, and courtesy of the UFL, this is what he had to say.
They took advantage of some long bombs all night. I don't want to say why did that happen, but
That's the question. Look at we broke some fundamental coverages. We just we didn't play a very good assignment football. I mean, it was pretty. If you have a half of the field, you need to be deep and not let it get behind you. And we did it several times today. We let them get behind us when we had deep zones as responsibilities, and that's why that happened. We've had that problem for the last few weeks. As a matter of fact, last week we got it nipped in bud a little bit against Birmingham the second half, but the weeks prior to that we were doing the same thing. We were giving up a lot of explosive passes, and that's something that we need to rectify in the offseason. When we come back next year and do a much better job, because it hasn't been that way the last 3 years. But this year, like I said, second half of the season, we didn't do a very good job, so that needs to be fixed. But basically, that we weren't playing a lot of different things, but what we were playing, we weren't executing very well.
So, so many times by halftime, you still have plenty of time to make halftime adjustments. And that was one of the, this game, for all intents and purposes, kind of was getting out of hand by halftime, but our own Mike Palco asked that question about halftime adjustments, and this is what Coach Nolan had to say.
Mike Palco from the Bottom Line Podcast. Coach, with the more into the secondary, so with the halftime adjustments, if any, how do you go into halftime with the big half that DC was able to put up, passing and throwing yards? What adjustments, or what do you tell the guys in the locker room at that point, how to get back on track and maybe get some stops to help the offense in the second half?
Well, you always have to identify what you're doing wrong. Is it the player? Is it the scheme? What is it? And we made a couple adjustments both in the scheme and with players, and it didn't seem to bode very well the second half either. So, but like I said, that's it's important that you identify what it is that's causing the errors, and we were more so not playing very well than it was kind of the calls, because I thought he was mixing the calls well, but we couldn't find our way out of it. So it goes. I mean, it's the defense. All of us will take blame for what happened. It just wasn't right.
Left side.
So KJ, if not for the big DC onslaught that kind of gave them quite a gap, pretty big lead by halftime, do you think Michigan's offense was playing at a level that they would have definitely been in the game had Michigan's defense held up a little better?
I definitely think so. I mean, as we stated, like, they were within a 2-score range all the way up until over halfway through the fourth quarter. So yeah, while they were down and they gave up definitely big plays, that was to your point on the defensive side of the ball. You look at I was looking at the post-game, full game recap stat sheet, and honestly, on paper, the way they have the stats broken down, they don't show interceptions for whatever reason in the QB stat tracking on the second page of the game sheet. But if you look at Tamu and Bryce's stats side by side, you would have thought this game was literally tied up until the fourth quarter, because they both threw for 4 touchdowns apiece. Bryce had one more sack to his discredit, and his completion percentage was slightly less than Tamu's. But I mean, they both were, flirting with at least 3.5, if not almost 400 yards on Tamu's side. So I mean, they both, swung the ball around and threw it a bunch. It's just a matter of the defensive woes. I think Bryce maybe threw 1 or 2 picks during the course of the game too, which obviously didn't help. Yeah, I mean, defense wins championships. That's a tale as old as time. I think it's still true today. Obviously, the offense is what gets you there, and that's why Bryce is equipped in the way they are. But like I said before, I think definitely his lack of, a week off is a week off. I don't even know if they really had a full week off from the conference championship weekend till championship Saturday this past weekend. But that break should have helped his recoup time. I still don't know if he was fully at 100%. Yeah, I think to answer your question flatly, if the defense had stood up more, this 100% would have been a 1-possession game down to the final minute. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They were, like I said, if they had stopped DC on their last touchdown score, they would have still been within 2 scores in the last 4 minutes of the game. And if we learned anything from the last time DC was in a championship, I think that's when this happened, was it Arlington was able to score in short succession in the XFL championship. I mean, we've seen in more than one game, whether it be through the XFL, UFL, of teams coming back and literally scoring multiple possessions in the matter of 5 minutes or less. So, while the numbers were spread apart what seemed like a far distance, it ain't the same as the NFL, baby. So that's one of the funner things about our league.
So, courtesy of the UFL, when head coach Nolan was asked about the performance of his offense at the post-game presser, this is what he had to say.
Eric Hall, Detroit News. How do you feel about the way the offense played? Nice first quarter, not as much offense in the middle, couple quarters, but then came back and got those couple 4th and 12s in the fourth.
If we played some defense, I think we'd have been in this football game because of the offense. The offense, I think, I can't criticize the offense at all. I really can't. There was, they kept us in the ball game even at the end of the game. We were, coming back. But again, if we had just made a couple more stops on defense, or a couple of stops, because I don't think they punted the entire day. If they did, but they didn't. I don't believe. Anyhow, I have no. I thought the offense was. They gave us a chance to win.
Mike, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, and it was just and you really, like, the heartbreaking thing was, he's with a lot of it, Michigan's defense, I'm not making like any excuse or anything like that, but you don't have like a Frank Ginda in there. There's a few pieces that were missing as far as like at least the front 7 in the box. Now with the secondary part, That's just and it's been the part, where the big plays, throughout the season. You're like, oh, Michigan, just gotta, you know, don't give up the big play. It's always been the big plays throughout the season that you would see teams exploit Michigan. Now, do you have a do you change to like maybe a bend don't break, keep the plays in front of you, so when the field shrinks, you have less to cover, and then you could dial up blitzes maybe from there to get more pressure. But at the end of the day, though, it's still um, nothing to take away from the Panthers. It's still an incredible season that they had. So if there's any Panther players that come across and maybe tune into the Bottom Line show, I want them to hear this, that this game, don't hang your head. What an incredible season it was. Just it'll be one they remember. I think a lot of us Michigan Panthers supporters that have been watching since 2022, or even back then from the 80s where I was even alive, but that win over Birmingham meant a lot to a lot of Panther fans that were watching this season. So
it meant more than just the Panthers fans. I'll echo your sentiment there, Mike. Michigan did the entire rest of the league a favor, especially on the USFL side, because I know a lot of us were burnt out, if you will, with respect to the Ponies dominating year in, year out. And so y'all, whether or not you won the championship, the fact that you made it so that Birmingham wasn't present again this year, most of the UFL, the rest of the league thanks you for. So definitely take pride in that.
Well, so the players definitely, players and coaches on staff, that was an incredible game that'll stay recorded on the Spectrum for quite some time. That has a lot of rewatch value on that game. But all in all, I thought the presentation of the championship game, Joe Tessitore, ESPN. So if you've, for those who watched it, he's really passionate about the UFL as well. You hear it in his voice when he broadcasts the game. So it was good to see and hear him call the game. And then, just great. Seeing the end zone paint, the two different colors. You got the logo in the middle of the field. It's a big championship feel to it.
Beautiful.
Prime time. So I don't know. I keep thinking to myself, how you have the Super Bowl in the NFL. Maybe spring, maybe it would adapt, the Spring Bowl, like Spring Bowl 3, Spring Bowl 4, we're going to the Spring Bowl. So just something like that, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Brian, that's probably an understatement right there. But I still get back to, even though they talk about, offensive coordinator Fred Guys referred to earlier about how he didn't think the MVP situation had as much to do with how that game started. Here's a few pressers from. First, I'll play quarterback Jordan Ta'amu's talk on the MVP, and I'll follow that up right away with tight end Briley Moore talking about what the MVP meant to their team. So here was Jordan Ta'amu at courtesy of the UFL at the post-game press conference.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, whenever we did get the news last night, Briley was the first person to text me to say, I got your back tomorrow. Like, we're going to win this. You're going to win the MVP. And not only him, the whole team. And just having that, just that brotherhood behind me meant a lot. And, I told them, pregame that I'm going to put my body on the line for them. And they did that. Bryce Perkins is a great quarterback, and, he deserved all the award. And it just gave us a big chip on our shoulders to go out there and play even harder.
You, Briley, you and Jordan shared kind of a moment during the game where you walked up to him and said, "That's my MVP." And obviously, Jordan, you went on to win the MVP of the game. Briley, can you tell me what it means to you to have won that, to watch your teammate win that MVP? And Jordan, can you elaborate on what it means for you to take home that trophy at the end of the season?
Yeah, it means a lot. I felt like he was deserving of it. Obviously, 3 over there is an amazing player. But just the year that he had, I thought, truthfully, I thought it was a lock. But just seeing the work that he had and the progress that he's had from year 1 to year 2 to this year, he just played with a different confidence this year. And I mean, you've seen it today. This stat line is insane. It's just like, but that's him. Like, you know, in a big game, after getting that news 24 hours ago, he didn't flinch. He didn't try to do too much. He didn't let it affect him, and he just balled out, and he got the MVP today, and that just shows what type of person he is. He's a
Yeah, KJ, just watching him play, it was something else. That's one of those records that may be a UFL record for some time to come.
That no
both
doubt.
Both on the point side and during the gameplay. I would say that was the other thing I noticed tangibly, not just with Jordan, but as the whole team, as a unit. It seemed like they were, and this is going to sound cliche or corny, but like they were actually having fun out there playing. And I know they had the lead, obviously, so, you know, that could be warranted to that to some extent. But there's a component where, you know, you almost play too hard. You mentally get yourself psyched out to cause yourself to almost make more mistakes or be so focused on being perfect that you end up screwing up and doing the opposite of what you want to do. So I think the fact that they were actually enjoying themselves out there, having fun. I saw them, I mean, they were throwing out countless different motions. Roland, to me, seems like the metaphoric Energizer Bunny, because he's like the same euphemism with small dogs and big dogs. The smaller ones always have more energy. I don't know how that guy was still sprinting all the way across the width of the field in all the motion reads they were doing pre-snap. But I know he tired out some Panthers defenders doing that stuff. But they threw in multiple trick plays. I mean, there was the one running back, I think, what do they call it, flea flicker pass or whatever, that they threw to Tomu at the corner of the end zone, and a couple other like significant misdirection type plays that aren't necessarily always part of your typical, you know, scheme or play calling book or plan. And I think that aided them too, and just being able to really, like, they threw everything at him. You know what I mean? They didn't leave anything off the table, if you will, schematically or strategically speaking, I think. So outside of a fake field goal.
And credit too to DC's defense too, because even after, like, when Michigan would score the touchdowns, you know, Michigan's known for doing very well with the point after, right? So getting that extra point, and then they were able to stuff the Michigan offense on those very important plays. Or Michigan, that's just like, I don't want to say a guarantee, but you can feel pretty good about Michigan getting that extra point after scoring a touchdown. So that kind of just, I think, sent a message that DC was there to play. They were for real, like, from the jump, like, because a lot of people, oh, well, Michigan, you know, when you look back when they played in Ford Field, you know, Michigan had their way with DC, you know, the RPO that Michigan used. Now, DC had, you know, definitely had a lot of RPO to throw back at Michigan too. So there was a lot of fun where, if you're a fan of the RPO game, how deadly that can be. You saw it firsthand, but, you know, both teams using it. So it was an incredible display of offensive creativity, playmakers, play callers, both Coach Marcel Belfay and our own friend of the program now, Fred Kais. Congratulations once again on also getting your award for Assistant Coach of the Year. So congratulations, Coach. I know we've had a conversation or two, you know, at Ford Field, and rooting for you guys too. So that was really cool to see. You guys celebrate too, and then also the championship celebration too. The podium there, you got the stage, you have the championship in the background, the confetti. You know, giving the guys, you know, the you know, winning a pro football championship. That's incredible. So how hard it is to even go and play college football, then to overcome the odds of play pro football, right? You know, whether if it's NFL or even just being in the UFL. I think winning a championship in any level of pro football is definitely quite an accomplishment, and, you know, and this team will be bonded forever after winning this championship.
So despite it all, you know, I think Mike had moved up and he was sitting in the row right ahead of me when it got to that fourth quarter, and then Michigan started doing all the 4th and 12s. So head coach Harris was asked about the 4th and 12, and the question's a pretty long one, so I had to break it up into 2 segments. So this first segment, courtesy of the UFL, will be the actual question asked, and then the second will be Coach Harris's response.
Mike Palko from the Bottom Line Podcast. First of all, congratulations to you guys on a tremendous season. incredible accomplishment from the start of the season, beating Birmingham, then beating a team that also dethroned Birmingham in their dynasty run. But with the game and the UFL and the rules, no lead is safe, no matter how big it is. With having such a lead, and then with the rules, is there anything that you told the players, hey, this is not over by any means throughout the game?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it at halftime. We got to finish still all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams. And, when it came down to all those 4th and 12s at any moment, it was just like all we need is one stop, And, eventually we got that one stop. And, of course, as soon as we got the ball back offensively, we scored the ball again. So we knew the preparation all week, man. We talked to the guys. When playoff time hit, we told them it was a different season, right? And these guys was ready for that moment. And the one thing what we, challenge each other on, from coaches to players, support staff, is that we're going to finish the drill. We've been in this situation in 2023. They hadn't been there, and we knew what it felt like. We knew what it tastes like to get back to this moment. And it was like we were not going to end this game and not be winners. We were not going to end this game and not be winners, and not be denied. So that was the approach, man.
And no matter how you slice it, too, when you talk about, I don't think there's many teams in the country in football. Like, if a DC puts up a half they did, like, I don't think who's beating that team who putting up those numbers and that score in a half, So
it's a wrap. 99 times out of 100, it's a wrap.
Yeah, and then with the UFL scoring, how the league, no lead is safe. No matter, it's kind of like I made the comparison at the game. It's kind of like when you have that 3-0 lead in hockey early on in the game. It's like, ooh, that's not always a comforting lead. It looks nice, but then when you have a period or two still to go, you get a high scoring offense. Kind of the sense of urgency hits its all-time high. They're able to, make some noise a little bit, kind of rattle the cage of the defenders, maybe just a little bit, to kind of, because I did ask that. It's like, if they score here, I mean, do you think DC is starting to maybe starting to sweat a little bit? But they were able to hang on. Chris Rowland put the final nail in the dagger of the game, and then they're raising the trophy at the end of the night.
Yeah. KJ, so I don't really know how to ask this question, but
ask it. I don't know what it is, but ask
so it. One of the guys in the comment line talked about, I think it may have been Chris, talked about the fact that DC is going to have to take on not the bad boy image, but the Star Wars image of the UFL. Do you think that's the case, or do you think that St. Louis is still firmly in the chair of being the hated team in the league?
I mean, there's always the component of you want to debunk the reigning champion, so I think that definitely is a feather in their cap they should wear with pride next season. It's maybe not to the degree, obviously, like Birmingham's is. But, I mean, at the same token, I mean, you've already got so many different, some haters would say, gimmicks out there. I mean, heck, why not have a group of super fans dressed up as I forget the name for them, but anybody who's a total Star Wars nerd junkie will know exactly what I'm talking about. But you've got those the red dudes that I think were usually the side by sides or the fellow fighters with Darth Vader in some of the action scenes of the ancient Star Wars films. So, I mean, embrace the costumes. You got a whole mantra you can take on if they're trying to do the whole empire, evil empire sort of thing. I think it would be funny. This is me as a Houston fan talking, but the irony of, it's a long shot, obviously, as it was this year, but if Houston were to run the tables, make it to championship next year and face DC with Jalen being our quarterback, it would almost be like this Anakin versus, Obi-Wan component of the two Jedi quarterbacks, the one being the Padawan facing the other. But that's me totally thinking like a fictional nerd, so that probably won't happen.
Well, now St. Louis, I mean, the St. Louis
is what I would say. So
St. Louis is the only team in the XFL to not win the XFL trophy yet. So that's You know, so who knows? You know, and then as far as the Emperor goes, too, I mean, DC did play Michigan at Ford Field on Star Wars Day too. So they that maybe that's when the Emperor, when the the Imperial thing started its roll. Because I remember I made I don't think how much traction it had, but I said make the comparison. Where's the difference? I put the DC logo, and I put the Star Wars Imperial logo. Spot the difference, and I'm like, I'm drawing a blank, and then.
Well, I would be safe to say, Mike, that you were probably the only guy at the presser that day that actually asked the head coach a question referring to Star Wars night. So.
No, I told Coach.
I didn't know if you were more excited about the Star Wars night or the Michigan DC game.
When you blend my two favorite things, Star Wars and football, and put that together, that's just I don't know how anything in my life would improve on that. Even that I told Coach Nolan pregame. I told him the force is with
you. Can you believe that? So. The last bit that I'll show from the postgame presser was quarterback Jordan Ta'amu was asked if starting his career in St. Louis and winning a championship in St. Louis was like a full circle moment, in courtesy of the USFL or UFL. This is what Jordan had to say.
Jordan, to come back to St. Louis to win your first pro championship, which is where your pro career really took off in the XFL back in 2020, what does that mean to you, kind of have this full circle moment here?
It's a huge blessing. It's crazy how God works, man. Just my first professional career in St. Louis, and to be able to play in the championship in St. Louis and to win it. And, me and my parents prayed about this, and, huge believers. And, look what God can do. And this is a testimony to that. And just what better feeling to win than in St. Louis.
Well said.
Field looked good too. Seeing it in person too, when they got that new turf into the building too. That looked pretty good too. So the stadium looks sharp. So good. Everybody from the staff working the games, everybody who put that on. All the executives who were at the game too. So that was like a big celebration of all the hard work everyone's done to get to this point, get to year 3 and then into year 4, or going into year 3 of the new UFL. I can't be more excited. I hope there's a lot more fans out there that can share the same passion that we do. I'm getting a lot of on X. I said this game felt like a Super Bowl to me. And I'm getting so. I went up to the press box, took a nice picture, and it very felt like a Super Bowl. And maybe the closest I get to a Super Bowl. If this league can be around for the rest of my life, I think I'd like to be. I like the UFL. I like the guys who come in this league. I like the coaches, the players that are all part of this deal. Obviously, they all want to get to the highest of levels, but sometimes, enjoy the moment where you are, having the players that are also UFL veterans too are the ones that I probably love them the most, just because they're just wanting to put the pads on, just keep putting another opportunity to play pro football. So I wish there was, if John Madden was around too, I'm sure there'd be guys in this league that would have that, not necessarily like the Pro Bowl award, but maybe getting that all Madden jacket. That was a really exclusive deal back then when he would hand out those, because not everyone got the Madden jacket. If you were a Madden jacket wearer, you were a special player and played everything that, that is meaningful for the game, played it the right way, have respect for the game, and just be an all-around good teammate too. So they're all champions, of making it and playing in pro football on the biggest stage. So congrats again to both teams making there, and then DC Defenders especially for being the newly crowned UFL champions.
So speaking of the championship jacket that you're talking about, I'm going to take a quick break so we can hear from Wild Sun Winery, who was gracious enough to supply us with the beer for our tailgate Saturday that we was able to hand out to all the Michigan and a few DC fans.
Awesome.
When we come back, there's a few things we need to clean up, and I'd like to get both your thoughts on where the league goes from here. Let's hear from Wild Sun. We'll be right back. I always like to say that the smoke you see in that commercial is from the annual hog roast that I have out there with a group of friends that I've got that ends up being a pretty big hit every year. So if you're not doing anything the first Saturday in October, come check us out at Wild Sun, because we're going to be doing the hog roast once again. Last year we had, I think it was a 180-pound hog, and there was nothing left by the time the day ended. So we're still trying to decide how much bigger. You can only get so big before a grease fire becomes a real issue. So anyway, so back to the UFL talk. Probably first and foremost, what everybody wants to see that we got to kick out of the way right off the bat is, how did the bottom line picks go for the UFL season? Okay. I'm sure everybody wants to see that. So here is the final season picks for the bottom line. So as you can see, yours truly, and I'll hold him up for everybody to see. If I can figure out where I need to put him. There we go. Wolf, the bottom line big dog picker, stays firmly in the lap of yours truly.
Well, at least I finished in the top 5.
KJ had a late run. He had a late run that got him second place.
I came in mid-season and surpassed 2 of the star 3 in this group, so I think I earned a little bit of bragging rights at least.
So then the next thing I'm going to put up there, that's my final power rankings for the season. And the reason why I'm going to put it up there is because I remember back in week 9, it was either week 9 or week 10, I put out a power ranking, and I think I still have it right here. It was week 10. Week 10, I come up with this power ranking. I had DC at number 1. I had St. Louis at number 2.
Part the Red Sea, Ed.
Made a lot of people mad. Yep.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to do that last time, Mike. Sorry about that. So anyway, I got lambasted on Facebook. I mean to tell you, I was the dumbest power ranking guy known to man for having DC number 1. And one of the big arguments was, well, Michigan killed DC earlier in the season. So Michigan should have been the far away number 1 team on my power ranking. But as you can see, with the exception of a few there, I wasn't too bad. I wasn't too far off in week 10. And
that's right, Chris. Ed does know ball. Tell him. Yeah, say it louder for the people in the back.
But again, when you only have 8 teams in the league and you do a top 8 power ranking, it should be a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, because you can make an argument for any of 4 teams at the top, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8 you can fill in. But for the most part, not too bad.
True. Yeah.
So
Patrick,
now
for the last 2 games of the season, you got arguably half the teams, or at least a quarter of the teams, that are not even playing their full starting rosters. So I mean, any outcomes that come from those matchups are almost negligible, because you can't hold them to the same esteem you do all the other games through the remaining 8 or 7 weeks of the season. So
did you get a chance to meet Excalibur?
No, I don't believe we crossed paths at the game.
Oh my goodness! Well, Excalibur's joining us, so welcome him. I think you got to meet him, didn't you, KJ?
I got knighted, baby. Let's go. I'm official now. It was an honor. I was graced with his presence. Yes.
I got to give you a little background on Excalibur. In 2020, and especially the beginning of 2023, I wasn't a real big fan of Excalibur, and the reason being is I thought, he needed to have this manly helmet on his head. I mean, it needed to be more, and so I was pretty hard on Excalibur to begin with. But then at one of the games, I had a chance to just watch him interact with kids and see the way the kids looked up to him and the special things that he did for the kids. And then I had a chance at halftime in the tunnel to talk to him a little bit one-on-one, and he couldn't have a bigger fan now than me, because I just think what he does is awesome. And I think the St. Louis Battlehawks made a huge mistake by not making him the official mascot of the St. Louis Battlehawks when they come out. I know they come out with the mascot that we've got now, but it should have been Excalibur all the way. But so here was the power ranking that I had week 10. Here is the power ranking that I'm going with for the final power ranking of the year. And that is DC, of course, stays in number 1. I moved Michigan up to number 2 because even though they got beat pretty soundly in the championship game, it still doesn't take away from the type of team that they had, and they were deserving of the number 2 spot. Really, the only reason I have St. Louis ahead of Birmingham was because St. Louis beat Birmingham. Other than that, that's all I have there.
Well, look at Houston in 5th there, though. That's I think that's going to be exciting for Houston fans for next season too. I think they got a good thing going, upper management coach with the Roughnecks. So I think I think they could be where Michigan is. I think even this season they were like, they could have very well been a 6-4 kind of team too. So I think that's a lot of to be hopeful for next season with the Houston Roughnecks. So stay tuned and watch them next season.
Well, originally, I went back and forth with Houston and Arlington for quite a while. But when it come down to it, if you look at the momentum that Houston had to finish the season off with, and really quarterback McClendon, he was starting to fire on all cylinders. And if you look at that team, they were really on a roll. And had things started off a little better for them at the beginning of the season, who knows? Arlington, all the talent in the world, but you talk about a team that just continued to shoot themselves in the foot. And to me, that just shows a total lack of discipline as a team on their part. And I don't know if that's discipline from the players, discipline from the coaches, but I got to give CJ Johnson a lot of credit. He had there was a lot of fans, a lot of
chirping,
were breathing down his neck when the season first started. And I got to admit that I was one of them. And by the time the second half of the season rolled around, Houston was a team to reckon with.
I will say that I will give myself credit for holding the line. You know, I was one of the ones who had the shield for Coach CJ Johnson. You know, if they're firing a bow at CJ Johnson, I was kind of like, I got him right here. You know, they would hit off my shield because I would defend, I would stick up for CJ Johnson. So, and that just proves me right that, hey, he's stuck, you know, I think had a great season too. So, I think, you know, very deserving to be Houston Roughnecks head coach. A lot of fun to watch. Now, if they can just get the pieces that close out games, they'll be just fine. They'll be a team that you may not want to see. Well, you're going to see the Houston Roughnecks on your schedule for sure with these teams, but you don't want to take Houston lightly. They put on a lot of fun football. McClendon looked great. You know, when he throws the football, seeing those RPMs on that football, that was a lot of fun. Even that alone, I think, is enough to tune into a Houston Roughnecks game. So, but KJ, I think you got a lot to look forward to next season. It'll be really exciting.
So the only thing I can say, Excalibur, is
not
here in a couple weeks, I'm going to have a lot of recovery time on my hands. If you give me permission, I might make it my goal. In fact, it might help me recover quicker. I might look for a new head for you. And just, I'm like I said, I'm not going to take away anything that you do because you do fantastic work. But I think that I could come up with a head that would be second to none. But anyway,
I think your helm's great, Excalibur. Don't listen to the haters. It just wants to get you hooked up with a helm you can't see out of, like the Count of Monte Cristo.
I got to give him credit. I got to give him credit because I see him. He always comes to our tailgate and talks to me before he actually gets in costume. And then when I see him in costume and I see the 95-degree day with the sun and everything, I can't imagine putting on that helmet. I would be so claustrophobic I couldn't even stand it. But let's get back to it, KJ, because I know that you want to comment on your Houston Roughnecks. What was your thought about them and where they stacked up to the league towards the end of the year?
I will say they definitely met my expectation in terms of like most optimistic outlook. And that's literally like verbatim. I thought before the season even kicked off, I said, based on how things were so kind of atrociously bad last year, it was like, let's just hit 500. Like that seems a reasonable goal to shoot for and something that if we can attain as a team, we can confidently say we're actually truly improving and we didn't have like a fluke year due to weaker scheduling or whatever. So I think that definitely was met, obviously, by the win-loss score that ratio that you see. I'll say there were a lot of people during the offseason who questioned, the coaching regimen change, like both of you and Mike mentioned, and really a lot of head scratchers on like, why did we pick up only a line coach or whatever? And it's like, well, I mean, you look at the stats for Lingard, for instance, and I think he was the top rusher come year end, yardage wise, either the top or second top performer across the league. So I think that speaks to the dominance that our offensive line was able to show in helping provide and produce production on the ground for our team all season, which helped us, come out with a lot of those wins that we did have and be so competitive in certain games. I honestly, at this stage, I'll be transparent. I definitely think Coach Curtis is an awesome man and very personable. He's very down to earth, very sociable with all the fans, both us and I think other teams. I'm honestly still on the fence and open to whatever the league chooses to do. I know that you mentioned this with the St. Louis as well, and kind of the same struggles that Beck has had in the postseason over the past 3 seasons. I mean, in my eyes, it's really up to the league how strict or where they want to kind of put the ceiling or restrictor play on coaching their productions. I definitely think, obviously, we've seen a staunch improvement over last year. There's no doubt about that. The thing I will say is, when we look at Coach Johnson's kind of holistic career as an HC, this still kind of falls in line with like what some would argue is his ceiling. So, now that remains to be seen. Obviously, any coach can do better. I think even Mike could attest to this with the Panthers.
Could do worse.
You could do worse. And then the other component is while I was even in the mindset of like, okay, well, the Panthers were good last year, but they still, they struggled their first year out the gate with Mike at the helm. And like many people can be too quick to throw in the towel or throw in the dismissive call for change. So, I mean, who knows? Next year could be the pioneering year that Coach Curtis, breaks his professional ceiling and starts a new precedent of success. I'm honestly open to either option occurring, whether they choose to keep him or go a different route. But I'll be there cheering every day. Y'all know me as well as anyone, every week for the team. And that's not going to change no matter who our head coach is. So I'll be there rooting for success every week.
Yeah, and then you look at, already we're seeing guys getting plucked away from their UFL teams and onto NFL rosters. So who's to say that, within the USFL division, with Michigan and DC being up there as the the premier teams in the conference, if they go, best teams are probably going to lose a lot of, at least a handful of their players to the NFL. So we could see different changes, and that just, in a team like Houston, if they keep their guys together, and they could do what Michigan did, get a lot of the same team together and go make a run at this thing. So I think that's one thing that that's what I would say for Houston. Very much has to look forward to is getting a lot of these guys together, kind of carrying off of what you did this season, and start off strong, because that is very important in this league. You can't start off slow. Get those wins right off. If you can get 2, 3, right off the bat, you can put yourself right in contention to carry that the rest of the way.
So what I'd like to talk about now just a little bit is, as we talk about when it comes to the UFL, the staying power, there's always a conversation about the stars of the league. They need to have stars of the league coming, visible every, in consecutive years. Well, you look at Bryce Perkins, you look at Jordan Ta'amu, you look at PETA. PETA's won the Defensive Player of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. And, talking to PETA, he said his agents is fielding calls from a couple teams. Jordan made the comment tonight on the A-team that he's got some interest in the NFL again. So I got to believe Bryce Perkins is in the same boat where he'll get a little interest. So as the big stars from this year's UFL get snatched back up into the NFL, if any of them stick, what does that mean next year for the UFL? And I'm just going to put these up briefly because I don't want to get into an attendance and a viewership talk. But when you look at this comparison, I thought was interesting. Last year when the Brahmas and the Stallions were in the championship game, they had 1.6 million viewers. They come out this year. This one was a comparison. They used the Defenders and the Battlehawks in I think that's a misprint because that should have been the Defenders in Michigan for the Saturday, June 14th championship game, but they have 983,000. So that's a substantial drop in viewership year over year. And then if you look at attendance, butts in the seats, year over year, the UFL's down about 1,000 per average per game, field wide. You've got Choctaw and Ford Field are really the only two that are either close or a little bit more attendance than the prior year, but you're starting to see a substantial drop off. St. Louis, 5,000 fans, Audi Field down 1,000, 1,300 down in Houston. San Antonio stayed kind of the same. Birmingham went down about 1,000. So having said that, where does the league go from here? What do you guys think has to happen? Because obviously both viewership and attendance is going in the wrong direction. So KJ, I'll ask you first. What, if any, want to talk? Are you talking expansion? Are you talking about relocation of the current 8 franchises, or what? What do you see has to happen for next year to get the boat going in the right direction again?
Would stick to what most would consider to be core basic business principles. If you have a product SKU of 8 products, for instance, I'll put it in elementary terms since we have 8 teams, and you have 7 of those 8 product lines that are failing or struggling to sell, you don't go out and expand your product line. That increases your overhead. That makes things harder to sell, harder to maintain the holistic overhead cost for your entire business. As much as people want to expand, and I completely understand it, and there may be an argument for, say, a team like Seattle, where we still have the league still has an active lease at Lumen Field up and through, I think, this next year. Outside of that, every other one's a true flyer, if you will, because there's no quote-unquote proven test unless you look at the history of things. And I think the numbers you showed just for the championship game itself echo the component of what a lot of people have used, the terminology I have as well, general fan fatigue, which is year over year. The first year of the UFL product, you had fans that were casually tuning in because of the interest of, this is the first year of the merged league. Yes, it was consolidation, and that was a negative loss if you look at the size of the 2 leagues that merged to make up the UFL. But respected to that, it was the first year of a new holistic constructed league in its specific design, if you will, and the teams that we had. And so I think that's why you see the drop off in attendance or viewership respected to those 2 years. It's all about the marketing. I mean, you're only going to get so much out of this, whether it be from an attendance, viewership. It's all the same in the sense of, if the awareness of the populace is not there, if the fan base or the potential fan base doesn't even know that teams exist, they have no, put aside the interest of choosing yay or nay whether to watch. It's a matter of, I don't even know I could watch because I don't know the team exists. I've heard this from countless fans from multiple teams, whether it be Birmingham. I know it's true in Houston, as big as Houston is, amongst other fan bases, that there's a large percentage of the population still that doesn't even know that they have a team in their city. We can nitpick all day long about, the corresponding pro team, whether it be the Texans or for Michigan, the Lions. Well, they have a team that's doing well, so that's negatively affecting attendance. Michigan's already disproven that mantra and that stereotype, if you will, to some degree with their increase year over year, them being the one kind of anomaly that we see trending upwards. I think that's a credit to their fan base. That's a credit to their marketing lead for their team. I think these heads for marketing for each of the squads just have to get more, inject more ingenuity in their thought process and how they strategically attack the marketing that they are able to do. I understand each team has a ceiling financially. They only have so much money they can spend. But I mean, for teams like Michigan and Houston, it should be a shoo-in that you're dedicating a majority of your marketing dollars to the local campuses that are associated with the venues in which you play. Houston and Memphis are both playing their games inside college stadiums, where even as a UH fan, I can attest I saw a Roughnecks table maybe once all of last season prior to the start of this 2025 UFL season. So those are the type of things that I think if they upgrade just there, you have 2 teams right there that have a very much closer or more within reach ROI on an immediate standpoint, return on investment, from marketing to see an increase in the attendance and the viewership numbers for those specific teams. For the other cities, I mean, St. Louis, I don't live there. Ed, you can probably speak more specifically, but I know for the spots, it's just a matter of getting the word out. Whether it's through ads on phones,
They must have the weather coming through Nashville right now, because he's starting to cut out a little bit.
The dollars they do get, I think, just need to go to attacking the local markets. The national scale, I think, will come on its own organically, but if you don't build from the foundational level, which is in each of these cities, you're not going to see long-term growth or stabilization, at least in the numbers that you want. So.
Did he pretty much hit it all, Michael?
Yeah, and then I would like to add more on the marketing side of things. So the boots on the ground, I would like to see the UFL expand in each of their markets too, because if you have folks that that care, that are passionate about what the league is all about, that think about the UFL every single day, every second for 365. That's what you need. So I'm not, vouching for anybody in particular, but maybe in a market where if you go and get somebody who lives, eats, and breathes for the UFL, that can really help out in the marketing sort of deal, and then help just being getting more fans that they could see how great of a league this can be. And if people aren't, they can't, if they're not aware, like you said, that the league has even existed. So the Michigan market now, for example, it's a sports town. It is a sports city. Even the state of, they call them Michigan Panthers. It's not exclusive to Detroit. It's the whole state. So you can come to Ford Field. I've even helped get some folks there, or let them know that, hey, you can take your whole family to Ford Field, and I have to take out, a loan, with the dang Lions ticket prices. You can come and watch the Michigan Panthers, still have a great time watching a football game. I mean, right. How does would a kid really care about who's who? They see someone in a helmet, in a uniform, showing courage, character, commitment, playing football out there. They couldn't tell the difference if that's Jared Goff or, you got Bryce Perkins there. So both are great athletes, great quarterbacks in their own right. So I just think, just so you could just execute with the marketing. That'd be the first step. And then as far as with the expansion and all that stuff, we'll see. But I think, scheduling, I think, it's going to be a busy spring. Don't get me wrong. They did go against the Stanley Cup final on the championship night, which, I think we're kind of right there as far as the UFL is with ratings, with how the America, views, hockey is, we know, is a majority Canadian sport. But at the end of the day, it's really, once the decision makers are going to have their meeting this week. So hopefully they, can figure out, what's best for the scheduling purposes. I would like to see more training camp time. Give the team rather more time to be with each other. I don't necessarily would, people say, oh, start after the Super Bowl. I'm not there yet, but I do think from what I'm hearing, they're kind of looking at the first week of March, which I think that would be, pretty solid too, because, if you started in February, we, even in May, like us Michiganders, we're still in jackets in May. Yep. Cause when you're pumping fuel at a gas station in Michigan, sometimes the wind chill, that can hurt, being out there at the fuel pump. It hurt. You don't want to be standing out there too long. So if you can find that balance, which I think the league is on the right track to do, I think because people look at already, when they see, looking at in business terms too, and let's say you look at a stock market, or let's say the S&P 500, over like a 5-year run, it's going to keep going up. Now if we're at a down right now from last year, well, maybe you can turn it around. It's not always got to be shut it down after year 2. Let's see over a long run. They've talked about in the press conference, they have a 15-year kind of plan here, so there's vision behind what they're doing. So everyone just needs to keep rowing in the same direction. I trust that Moose Johnson, Russ Brandon, Danny Garcia, all the powers that be, are going to make this thing work. So I have no doubts that this league is here for the long haul.
Sure. I echo your point, Mike, too, about the super fan part. Like these tables they set up with their tents, at every team's different marketing functions. Your table with one little marketing guy sitting at it's not going to speak as loud as if you have a super fan standing right beside. And I can attest, I know for Houston, we do it for free. You don't have to pay us squat.
Yeah, there's people that think I work for the Panthers.
Yes, they will show up.
Well, and Robert, the comment Robert makes here about, billboards and that kind of thing, that's where, I don't know how old Robert is, but when I say something like that, they all tell me I'm old. Because This
That
is
is the
where
way.
everybody
That
says
is
the
the way.
marketing dollar needs to go, because
Right.
the young generation, this is where you have to hook up with them.
I'll say to your point, Ed, it's a combo thing, because while everything now is through social media and the electronic platforms, and I 100% agree, it's been very rare. It has happened, but it's been very rare that a billboard had caused me to pull over to buy a Coke or purchase whatever stupid product I've seen advertised on it. But in the same respect with social media, I can just as easily flip through something that doesn't get personal to some degree. There's a reason that YouTube is littered with 30-second to 15-second video ads and not just a standstill image of buy season tickets. You need to personally connect with your potential fan base, and you're have a much higher success or potential to do that when you do a little video excerpt. You show a player, you show the coach, you show something tangible besides a still image that fans can truly connect to. That's just my opinion.
So with that said, just a little bit, I want to touch on a few things. The bottom line goes to when the fall rolls around, we start covering college and the NFL. But until then, we usually take about a 5-week break between now and late July before we get into the preseason talk of the NFL and the preseason talk of all the major conferences in college. We went 49 weeks from late July. We went 49 weeks straight with the only 1 week off, and that was because I had 2 heart attacks to get us a week off. Everybody needed a week off, so I just had a couple heart attacks. So that would give everybody the week off that they needed. But we are going to take another break. There is an interview that I would like to do, and I will be reaching out to him after tonight. Mike made me aware, and I got a message from him today. So there is a coach that I would like to have on the show and interview him. Got a lot of info I'd like to get out of his mind, because I got to say that with DC, there was a lot of personality on that team, and that ran clear through the coaching staff, whether it's head coach, even the defensive coordinator. Once Williams was gone, his son that took over, he had personality to him. Fred Kais I really enjoyed listening to him up in the box during this season, especially in the championship game again, when I said he was interviewed and the answers that he gave about keeping the foot on the pedal and all that stuff. Would like to talk to them, so I'll be reaching out to see if he would be willing to come on the show for an interview. But other than that, I think the Bottom Line crew is going to take a break, and we will be back on the final Wednesday in July, which I believe is July 30th will be the first week that we come back. And that team will be KJ, Chad will be back in the seat again, and Eric and I will be. So the 4 of us will be doing the fall show like we did last year. So we're looking forward to that. Really looking forward to KJ's, now that he's going to be covering college and NFL. I'm really interested to see what his bold predictions has in store. So I talked to Eric. Eric is in agreement. KJ is going to run with the Big 12 this year. Eric is going to move over to the SEC. Chad's going to continue to cover the Big 10, and I will cover the NFL. So between the 4 of us and the hot topics, a 2-hour show each week is going to be nothing. So Eric just wanted me to warn KJ that Eric's going to be keeping an eye on his power rankings, and whenever he thinks that KJ is becoming a Houston homer, he's going to have to call him out on it. So
I'm a homer, but I'm a realistic homer. So I won't be picking UH to win every game like Mr. Palco here does for the Kitty Cats every week.
I'm a real. Hey, I had no reason to pick against Michigan.
So anyway, it's been an awesome season. I want to thank everybody.
No, why not have, if we go on a little break, I like for us all, that maybe if you have a game of the year nominee that you would like to vouch for before we break off this final episode. What great games we've had all season. It may take a little bit to get the offenses going and stuff like that, but I think one of the big games that I would like to kind of give a shout out to, and this is from like the fans of the game, like from watching it at home, the game where Michigan went to St. Louis. We've talked about this game too, where the fans were loud in that game. Like that one felt like that one was a classic game. And you had DC Arlington, both of their games. What incredible games those were. Michigan, Arlington, Houston, and Birmingham. Like you had a bunch of. So I'll probably do a poll after tonight. If we all give our little picks here, and then let's see what the fans do. So you can check this poll out probably later tonight on the Bottom Line. I'll let it go for a couple days, and we'll put up if you have any mentions too, feel free to drop them in the chat here, and we'll chop it up there on X. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd have to probably think about the best games of the year. Because it's easy to be a homer when you talk about the best games of the year. So I'd probably have to have a chance to look through the schedule and come up with those. But that can definitely be a topic if we do a special show with another interview coming up with one of the coaches. There's also a couple other coaches that I'm going to reach out to and see. And if nothing else, if it's not live, we may record the interview and then break it apart. I know Eric and I did a show earlier this year where we had Abdul Beecham on our show, and we interviewed him, recorded, and we did a show where we just played clips of the interview as we did the show, and that we got a lot of good response with that. So we may even look at that. So going to be looking for KJ's. He's got connections that we can probably only imagine. So we're hoping this fall that when it comes to college and the NFL, maybe we can get some interviews that maybe don't present themselves in the UFL. We'll just have to see. But until then, can't wait to see. I encourage the UFL to be a little more forthright. And if there's going to be any new markets coming into play, the sooner the better. Because if you're going to drum up interest in these new markets, the sooner the better. So anyway, you guys got any parting shots? If not, we're gonna jump up on out of here. I want to tell real quick. I want to tell everybody, go to our page. If you can give us a like and a follow, that'd be fantastic. Our page continues to grow with our followers, so we appreciate everybody joining in, and want to thank everybody. I see the mainstays in our comment line every week, and I sure appreciate taking the time. I know it's a 2-hour show every week, but I'd like to think that our content warrants it. So let's do a quick parting shot from KJ and Mike, and we'll get out of here.
Drill, baby, drill, and go Cougs. That's all I got to say. So.
What a fantastic!
Now, Mike, did you hear that? That was short and sweet.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to do that. I will take a minute to thank all the people who have made this thing so much fun. All the folks who are watching right now on Facebook, YouTube, new followers, where I've taken the reins on X. Every thought that comes to the UFL, I think about the UFL every single day. So you're going to see me just tweet in my mind about, or what do you think tweet with? I'll still use tweet, it's still the Twitter sphere. So I'll still be just saying what's on my mind about with the league, and I always like to talk about things such as uniforms and just what, name something, usually with the interest of the league, and it's going to be the most far left field thought I have about the UFL. I'll be sharing that with all you folks just to keep us in mind talking about the UFL. Just because the Bottom Line show is going away, the UFL is season is done, that does not mean we still can't talk about the UFL every day, which I certainly will. Hopefully most of you will be able to join us, but all the players, all the coaches I've interacted with throughout the season, hopefully, hopefully this thing that you believe, believe in the UFL, want to stay in the UFL. Coach Harris, was asked in the press conference, is he going to stay or is he going to go to college and follow other coaches there? But hope this, believe in this league. It's a lot of fun and it's very special to a lot of folks like us on the show. So thank you guys for a successful season, and go UFL, and particularly at the Michigan market, go Panthers.
And one thing I want to say with KJ too is I will encourage KJ, even though we just cover the UFL and in the fall it's more college and NFL, doesn't mean that if we see interest, rising for a different league other than those three, we're more than willing to start spending some time on that.
Women's Football Alliance. I brought it up today too, Ed. Yeah, so we're
KJ's got some other interests in football as well, because I see occasional posts that he makes in other leagues. But I'm hoping that I'm going to give KJ posting rights in X as well. So between Mike and KJ and myself and Eric, that hopefully we can flood the posts and Facebook and X and maybe get Instagram going again, and maybe get those posts flying, because there's a lot to cover out there, and it takes a village, right?
Sure,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, we got, I see Patrick. Yep, Women's Football Alliance. Yep, they're in playoff mode. The St. Louis Slams looking to win another championship. And then you also have the European League of Football really taking off, really getting in stride too. So that's going to be very fun to watch. So hopefully the league can figure out more ways that we can have access to watch their games. Canadian football leagues also starting as well. And then about the midway of the season, if you're into the arena sort of scene, you have a couple of leagues going on. You have Arena Football 1. You have the Indoor Football League, which I'll be watching. You can subscribe. It's a $30 for the season, and you get all the games, good quality on their streaming service. So they're getting set to go in the playoff mode. Good. Well, not necessarily yet, but you're starting to see teams starting to put their stamp on as playoff contenders. So still good football out there before the college and NFL season starts. So love your alternative football leagues. If you have something going on near you that is football, go check it out. You know what I mean? There's a lot of players out there playing hard. If you see that football getting thrown in the air, that'll be me just watching. I'll watch a football game just about anywhere. So no matter what
the folks, if it's north of the border, in the States, across the pond, or indoor, outdoor, football is now year-round.
Football around the globe.
There you go.
So with that said, again, thanks everybody for another successful UFL season. Congratulations to the DC Defenders.
Congratulations, DC.
And with that said, we will be back. I will post and let you know for sure when we're coming back, and if there's any interviews we're going to have in the meantime. But until then, enjoy the next couple months, and we will be back stronger and better than ever. We'll see you guys later.
And that's the bottom line.